Hi, it's Randy Herman with Keller Williams Realty, bringing you everything real estate, question and answers, the show that answers all your questions about real property. And today the topic is, what is it like to be a realtor? And I have with me my colleague, Steve Berquist. Steve, thanks so much for coming.
Happy to be here, Randy. Thank you.
Right. So we had Lynn Cohn on the show before, our team leader, she's called, telling about what you have to do to become a realtor. But I thought today we could talk about what is the life of a realtor really like. And
chaos could be a good description, but it's controlled chaos.
Right, controlled chaos is not a bad description at all. But Steve, very few people out of the 1,300,000 realtors across the country go into real estate as a first career. Quite a few, I would say the vast majority, usually have another career before. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what you did before becoming a realtor, how long you've been a realtor, et cetera.
Well, Randy, I'm actually on career number 3. After college, I went to work selling frozen food for a very large international corporation through Central Mass into Vermont, New Hampshire, and down south of Rhode Island and Connecticut. Following that, for 20 some odd years, I published local telephone directories, and I had received an offer from my company at one point, and as I was evaluating the offer, a friend who had been in real estate for 14 years, and he'd been after me, telling me I'd be good at it, he came in and said, "So what are you going to do with the rest of your life?" So I said, "I guess I got my real estate license," and in very short order, I had it. And
so how long have you been a realtor now?
I've been licensed since March of 2007.
Okay. And of all the careers you've had, the 3 careers you have, how would you place this in terms of difficulty?
They all have their difficulty. When you've got a small company and you've got to meet payroll every week, it's a little different than the challenges of interviewing for your job pretty much every single day in real estate. So there's a lot of differences. People think that it's all kinds of freedom. The reality is that we're tied to the availability of clients and meeting with buyers and sellers.
Right. So why don't we just jump in then and quickly go over what is a realtor?
Well, first of all, not all real estate agents are realtors.
Absolutely.
It's a designation where we have a code of ethics that we have to live by. We all have to follow the law, whether it be real estate agents or realtors. But it's a higher standard and degree of professionalism and training that most realtors
But whether you're a real estate agent or a realtor, you're there to buy, sell, help clients buy, sell, invest, and lease property.
Absolutely.
Right. So what do you find is, maybe you can go into a little more difference between being a realtor and being a real estate agent and being a broker.
Okay, well, all real estate in Massachusetts, I'm only speaking to Massachusetts as that's the only state I'm licensed in, all real estate agents hang their license at a brokerage, and we act as agents for the broker of record, the one who is responsible for us. They call it the responsible member, or the broker that we work for. And we are agents for him. The difference between being an agent and a broker is that a broker can have their own office, and there are different standards to become a broker than there are to become a real estate agent. But unless you desire to own your own office and to manage your own brokerage, there's no need to get a broker's license.
Right.
We perform the same duties.
Right, but you're in the business longer, you have to take a separate test, another course, et cetera. So it's a little bit higher designation, right?
It is. Right. And when there's a problem, the agents go to the broker to try to find the solution that will work best for their client.
Right. Okay, and as really what we do, what it comes down to is that we are consultants for our clients, right?
Very much so, yes.
Right? We owe them a fiduciary responsibility. We try to put their needs ahead of our own.
Always. That's
Right.
the whole idea of a fiduciary, is that you are acting in the client's best interest, not in yours. Right. We have, there's something called OLD CAR, obedience to lawful instruction. Loyalty, undivided loyalty to our clients.
Disclosure.
Disclosure, that means if someone tells you something about a property, whether you're representing a buyer, if you learn it from the listing agent, you will pass that on to your client if it's in their best interest. We always have to act in their best interest. Reasonable care. We have to always provide reasonable care for our clients. And there's also
Accounting.
Accountability. We're responsible for accounting for all funds in a real transaction.
And confidentiality.
And confidentiality is the last part.
Right. So really, as a realtor, day to day, we have 5 functions, right?
Yeah.
We prospect and we lead generate.
That's the core of it. If you don't do that, you don't have any business.
Right. And so how much time do you spend a day doing that, do you think?
There are times I spend a lot, and there are times I don't spend as much. But we're actually always lead generating, trying to lead generate.
Whether you go to a party, whether you're making cold calls, whether you're at an open house, if you're just with friends, in effect, you're always...
In a typical day, it's 2 to 3 hours is the ideal. Some days is more, some days is less.
And then the second thing we do is we follow up. And what do they mean by follow up? Usually it's put these people into our database, put them on a drip campaign, we call it, where you...
we notify people of activities that are taking place in the market. And
search for buyers.
we're searching for, well, often we're searching for listings because we have buyers, and we still run into the situation today where inventory is tight at a lot of price points, and in that case, we're really trying to find the homes that aren't currently on the market, and that's the challenge.
Yep, absolutely. Next, once we do find these homes, we make appointments, right? We usually take and we go on appointments, either to try to get the listing or to take buyers to see the houses, right? Right? And then negotiate contracts.
Negotiating contracts, that's where the rubber meets the road and where we really add the most value.
So do you think that your business experience from before helped you, or helps you in terms of negotiating?
It does, and it's really trying to find a win-win solution for the buyer and for the seller.
What do you mean by a win-win?
By a win-win, I mean that,
I mean, if you're representing a buyer, don't you want the buyer to win?
well, first of all, a win normally equates to getting the property they want at a price that they want. And buyers set the market in all cases, and they're competing in many cases against other buyers for the same property. So getting the property is the ultimate win.
Getting that property, that's the big one in this market, yeah.
Yeah. And
And then in terms of the seller,
in terms
though,
of the seller, it's, having a buyer who's willing to get the price that the seller wants, that has the dates that will work for them. If they have to be, sometimes a seller cannot close exactly when the seller wants
so
to.
you have to
So we have to coordinate it and
between the two.
adjust it. That's another negotiation.
Yeah.
It's not just the price that's negotiated. There are many other terms.
Right.
Is their financing strong? Is it set? Is it in place when they come to present an offer? In most cases, an offer won't be considered without the financing or proof of funds in place.
So it's not just throwing numbers back and
No.
forth, there's a
No.
lot of different factors in terms of negotiating.
That's correct.
Which is why we have whole classes on it at Keller Williams, absolutely.
We spend an awful lot of time doing the negotiating, and oftentimes it's some of the smaller, finer points of a real estate transaction that take the longest to get resolved.
Right. So the last thing is we spend a lot of time on our own education, right? Keeping up with the laws and changing regulations and rules, and just sharpening our skills as consultants for our clients.
Very much so. And in Massachusetts, the minimum is 12 hours of continuing education every 2 years. In fact, most of us take a lot more than that. There are special certifications. You can become a accredited or certified buyer's agent. You can become a specialist in working with seniors. And there's general training on running our businesses. And each agent is an individual business that we get training in as well. Further, if I may, realtors also require every 2 years additional training to meet the ethical standards.
Right. So we're sitting a lot of times in classrooms or taking webinars or discussing these new rules and regulations and what goes on with our colleagues. Right? Plus, we also have coaching that goes on.
Absolutely.
Do you have a coach?
I actually do more coaching than receive coaching. I intend to be in coaching starting in 2019. I have participated in group coaching many, many times, but I will be hiring a personal coach as well.
Yeah.
You think of a baseball player, for example, someone who's very successful in baseball, they may get a hit 3 out of 10 times at bat, yet they're working with a batting coach every single day to get better and better at their craft, and we do the same.
So, Steve, why don't you take us through a kind of a day in the life of a realtor? When you were just saying today you had an early start and you had so many things going on. Why don't you let us know what you've done, for example, today, or what you normally do? Okay, well, today was a little bit different. I picked up a client at the airport, someone who's relocating at 8 o'clock. But I was at the office around 7, then to the airport and got them squared away into their new place, and then I had some personal business to attend to, but that's not a typical day. Typically, a day will start, for me, they start usually around 7 a.m., going through emails, returning messages that have been left, etc. Right. And then after that, I usually do script practice. I try to do it several times a week at least with different partners to practice what we say and responses and handling objections because, some people think that scripts are almost cheating.
Scripts
somehow.
are not bad. Scripts are a wonderful thing.
Yeah, because you know what you're talking about.
Indeed. And, people's objections tend to really be the same, and it's explaining to them what the actual situation is, and knowing how to react when a buyer or a seller says something, and being able to respond in a professional manner
And give them
provide
information.
the ability to move forward in a transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And then after that, I try to make calls. I try to call for sale by owners, expired listings. I try to keep up with my database. I know you are constantly on the phone.
Well, I'm constantly on the phone, and before we came over today, I had a conversation with the seller, who I have yet to meet with his wife. However, I've already given him some instruction as far as where he has to go moving forward in terms of preparing his property for sale.
Right. So do you give like a pre-listing packet to them, or?
It was, I viewed the property. He had informed me ahead of time of some challenges that he has in preparing it for sale. So I did meet with him and went through the steps he'd have to take in order to get there. That's part of the educating of our clients.
Right, and that's part of preparing for any appointment. You do background, you check, you either have booklets that you hand out or paperwork for them to fill out so that you are prepared. If it's for a buyer, you're making appointments for the buyers. So you make the calls and then you have your preparation.
One of the purposes of making calls, it's not to make a sale, it's to make an appointment. I met with a new buyer last Saturday, actually, and it was a few things. Part of it was going through the paperwork that's involved. They had been pre-qualified by a lender, so I sat down with them and we looked at properties in the price points that they were looking at.
Right.
And as we did that, they realized that even though they weren't looking in the heart of Boston, it was a little bit further out, it's still a very competitive market. And there was a little bit of I had no idea, reaction. They talked about, well, we looked on Zillow and it said it was worth this, but I can see that it's sold for this. Why is
So
that?
aside from our preparation, we have to prepare our clients for
the reality of the market.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter, Randy, if the market is rising, falling, or steady, we have to prepare them for the journey they're about to face.
And then usually part of my day anyway is going out and seeing houses, meeting with buyers, meeting with sellers, getting your boots on the ground, so to speak, so that we can, get a house sold.
Absolutely.
Right.
And again, we do that for both buyers and for sellers, because if we meet with the seller and we've seen a similar home in the recent months, it's very easy to bring them to that one and say, this house, if it
Show the differences.
show the difference between what it was and what it sold for, and the whys.
Right. And if it's a buyer, then, or even a seller, we're preparing the paperwork that has to go along with an offer, or for putting a listing on the multiple listing service. What happens after that? Suppose there's an accepted offer, then do you spend part of your day with vendors? For example, if they're having an inspector there, do you accompany an inspector?
With buyers, either myself or a colleague will sometimes attend them for me. But yeah, we spend time researching if a home has had building permits pulled, and or we go down to a building department with our clients and show them what permits have been pulled, and if they're closed. That's an important thing as well.
And then we're always catching up with clients, we're informing them, we're letting sellers know who came to see their house, for example, giving them reports, or letting buyers know about changes in the market.
Communicating with our clients is one of the biggest parts of our job.
Right. And then there's a lot of follow-up work as well for us. I mean, I spend a fair amount of time putting entries into a database or having an assistant do that. And that takes because we have newsletter lists, we have database lists, we have other kinds of communication, whether it's Christmas cards, et cetera, that have to be done with our clients.
Our days are full, let's put it that way, Randy.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how many hours do you spend a day?
I typically start my day working at around 7, maybe 7:30 some days, but usually 7 to 7:30. I make it a point to be home to have dinner with my wife, and oftentimes there are trade events that I attend in the evening. I'm the membership committee chair of the Greater Boston Association of Realtors, so occasionally there are events that I have to attend there. In the summer, I tend to be showing properties as long as there's daylight.
Plus, there's all kinds of networking events that we have through the chamber, Needham Chamber, or I know you're a Mason, so you have other responsibilities there that are also real estate connected in one way or another.
Well, the latter one isn't, but certainly the real estate events and networking events I do attend,
Right. So we're putting in 10 to 11-hour days often.
Yeah.
And how many days a week do you work?
I'm working on getting it down to 5.5. Right now, there are times I'm working 7 days, and may not be entirely 11, 12-hour days, but I'm probably working somewhere in the area of 50 to 60 hours a week anyway.
It's so interesting because so many people look at the life of a realtor and they think, oh, I can set my own schedule. It's so
and I can do it part-time.
I can do it
Doing
part-time.
real estate part-time is really, really a challenge.
Yeah, really a challenge.
Because there are so many ancillary activities that support what we do for our clients.
Absolutely. So part of this is that, there are so many realtors and it's so competitive a field, is because it's rather easy to become a realtor, isn't it?
It's relatively easy. The standard now is 40 hours of classroom, and then you take an exam. And once you've taken the exam, that tells you you've passed the exam. Most real estate classes don't teach you anything about selling real property or buying and selling.
Which is why, for example, our company has all of these different courses that you can take that take you step by step from the first moment you get your license until you want to set up your own team, until you go beyond that. So.
That's right. And without that kind of training, it's a real challenge for many agents to succeed.
Right.
The reality is that 20% of the agents do about 80% of the business. That's a maxim that holds true in this business.
I think it's more like 90-10.
Whatever the number is, it's pretty high. And there's a lot of attrition. People don't understand most people don't go into real estate with the understanding of what is involved.
Right. So there were about 1,200,000, 1,300,000 agents. Then came the downturn with the mortgage debacle, and suddenly there were like 900,000 agents, and now it's back up to 1,300,000.
There will be some attrition as the market changes. The market is shifting currently.
Yep.
In Greater Boston, we're a bit more insulated from it. What we're seeing is it will not be a cataclysmic change like there was in 2008 and 9. That's not happening because that was based on fraud. But the rate of appreciation in Greater Boston as well is definitely flattening out. And at the high end of the market, which is where real estate trends always start, there are price reductions we were not seeing in the past. There are days on market. Those metrics are changing.
So why don't we drill down to the nitty-gritty, which so many people want to know when they become a realtor, is how much can they make?
You can make a lot of money.
I mean, there's agents in our office who are making well over $500,000.
There are several that do, and
And there's agents in our office who are making zip because they don't do much real estate.
They don't do much real estate.
Right.
It is totally controlled by the number of transactions that one does. My philosophy has been, I don't tie myself to strictly luxury or strictly entry level. I cover all phases of real estate. I think you do as well. And the reality is that an agent in the Greater Boston area can easily earn, after taxes and all, in excess of $100,000 a year.
Right. And the interesting part is that's even after all your expenses are paid, as a realtor, and there are quite a few of them. After your fees are paid, right? And even having an assistant, you can still make
You can still net a very good income.
Yeah, very good. So what do you think, Stieg? I mean, you have a kind of a very gregarious personality, and
Me? I'm a shrinking wallflower. Come on.
and you know so many people in the area.
I do.
Born and bred around here. What do you think makes a successful realtor?
I think it's the ability to.
I mean, can I ask you, do you think that those two qualities, knowing a lot of people in an area and also being very friendly, are...
It doesn't hurt, and you have to ask for business, and people have to... There are three truths in almost any business to be successful. They have to know you, like you, and trust you. And fortunately, I've got a pretty good base of that. That said, there are agents who have been extremely successful moving to a new area, and because they didn't know anybody, they spend so much time on the lead generating in a relatively short amount of time, they're able to build their business into something that I admire. I've known several that have done it.
Right. And we were just talking about this before, but I think there are other ways to get into a community, too, very quickly. Some of it might be you have a ethnicity that, a population that you work with or you're a part of. I love to do art, so
You're active in the art community.
in the art community, et cetera. I mean, you again, as somebody who's been around and been in business, et cetera, you probably have different groups that you work with.
I have friends from all the different parts of my life, and fortunately I've got a lot of different parts, so it's a pretty broad group.
Right. But it's interesting, because I know certain realtors who you would say are almost antisocial, who make a great amount of money and are very successful because they concentrate more on systems. They have a way to make everything flow very easily. Again, they're trusted and they're liked, but they don't go out and spend a lot of time socializing.
Systems are what really propels growth, and that's something that we all strive for, is to have systems in place where we follow the same steps in our lead generating, in our everything from negotiating to getting through to the closing.
Right. And
following the closing.
absolutely. Yep. We stay with our clients from birth to death.
That's the objective.
Right. I had an idea once, part
What's
of
that?
real estate should be selling plots in cemeteries, because it's land, how much land does a man need, really?
At the end, they don't need as much, but we're actually more interested in getting them where they want to be. At a
Making
given
them
point in
happy
time.
while they're alive. So I wanted to ask you, how do you view this role of technology now for realtors? We only have a few minutes, but I wanted to get your opinion on it.
The technology is changing the real estate business in a dramatic fashion. People have more access to data than ever before, and we have to find a way to, not to be the gatekeepers, but to bring them the information and interpret it for them. Because someone places a value on a property of $1 million, there's an art beyond the science. The science will say, okay, it's a 5,000 square foot property on a 12,500 square foot lot. It has 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. That's fine. That's the science. You do the division. It's more math than science. The art is in determining the factors that make a big difference in a property's value, and that's taking it from the technology and applying the art of factoring in things like the location, which of course is most important, and enabling the client to, when they see something that's interesting to them, to communicate it to us, and us to be able to communicate to them. Technology, really, that's where the big benefit of technology comes in.
Absolutely, and staying in touch with the people that we know and letting them know what we're up to and what's happening in the marketplace. Absolutely. It is an interesting, though, fact that while there were about 5.3 million sales across the United States, there's still about that many sales, even with the number of sales going down slightly. But at the same time, the number of leads seems to increase, because what they're calling leads are people who encounter houses through the internet, but they're not really leads. Most of the real leads come through people and through your own sphere.
Technology will never surpass human contact.
Yeah.
It will, however, allow us to at least let people know that they should be contacting us in order to find out more about a property.
Right, and they can find the property themselves so much easier. So just to sum up, Steve, we have about a minute left here. What do you see as the value of a realtor?
It's really I talked about the art and the science. The value that I add typically is in the negotiating side. And again, it's not always price. There may be some term that a buyer or a seller needs, and we have to communicate that to the other side. And that's where I see the greatest value that we add, is in the negotiating. How about yourself?
I would agree totally, and that we are counselors for our clients. We help them to get the property they want, first of all, and to advise them upon the condition of the property and what's involved in getting the property and the best way to do that, and making sure that this is going to be a good match for them.
Absolutely.
Right. So, there's 1,000 other things to discuss. I'd love to talk to you about some of
Let's do it again.
the challenges. Let's do it again. So thanks so much.
All right, hey, thank you.
Really appreciate it. And I'm just going to put up your information here in case people want to get in touch with you. Stieg is a total expert on Needham, Newton area, but the whole greater Boston area you sell.
I've been here my whole life, and I totally love it here.
Yeah.
And questions are fine. We love to answer them. No obligation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.